Swords, arrows, lightning, and 4 hot women. No, this isn't a geek fantasy. It's Behemoth's Castle Crashers for the Xbox 360 arcade. The brilliant minds behind Alien Hominid have thrown down the gauntlet yet again with this great title. An epic soundtrack, intense action, and simple story make this game shine. Along with some quirky humor and 4-player co-op, this game has a lot to offer. So let's get started with presentation. The presentation itself is great. The story is really simple. A wizard comes in and kidnaps the king's 4 daughters, and this thing that can only be described as a giant crystal. You are one of the top knights in the kingdom. You have to go and get it back. You have to get the crystal back, kill the wizard, and make out with all the daughters. That's the entire story. That's it. But it works for this title. The few cutscenes before boss fights range from comical to oh my god. The thing that drives Castle Crashers is the gameplay more than the story, but that simple story is what makes it worth getting through the entire game. Gameplay is solid and fun. Simple mechanics complement the idea that it's a real party game meant to be played with anyone. The magic system is simple and intuitive in a way that makes it worth using your magic attacks, but they are not a crutch. You can change your weapons and it will modify your stats just the way old granddaddy D&D intended. Some will add to your agility while others add a chance to hit element. You gain XP from killing enemies, and when you level up you can adjust and add to one of 4 stats: attack, defense, agility, and magic. Overall, it's a good system that anyone can use. It just gets repetitive, and let's face it, it's just really simple. What keeps it from being too boring is random elements from the story. Now, I know I said the gameplay keeps you moving and not the story, but it's how they play off of each other that really does it. Let's face it, a game that gets way too into the story and not the gameplay is just a movie that requires some button pressing. Sound is some of the best I've heard for any game, not just the arcade. It keeps the feeling of epic throughout the game and just leaves you feeling excited and pumped for what's next. The sound effects are all great and they all fit for what they're intended, but the music is what really shines. It's so good, you'll want to download it so you and your friends can play an old school game of tag in epic fashion. Graphics are good for what it's intended for, just a fun, quirky game that anyone can enjoy without getting too caught up in itself. So many times has a game spent all its resources on graphics only to come up short in other areas. Cel-shaded action has its place, and Castle Crashers is the perfect example of when it should be used. Lasting appeal is decent. You have a bunch of animal companions, weapons, and secret characters to unlock, but the simple story and gameplay will just make you want to go off and play something else with your friends for a while. Once you get through it, it'll be a while before you pick it back up again, but when you do, it's really worth it. Final scores for Castle Crashers are an 8 for presentation. Simple story, while good, can only go so far in this case. If your story is no more than a sentence long, not even God can give it anything better than an 8. And he's God. Gameplay is also an 8. Simple use of combat and magic make things fun, but you're not going to get the same satisfaction out of it as you would another action game like God of War. Sound is a 9. I wanted to give it a 10, but for that you need a full-length game with a full soundtrack. But Castle Crashers has the blueprints for any game on how music and sound effects should be used. Lasting appeal gets a 7. It's fun to play with your friends, but once you get all the way through it, you aren't going to play it again for a while. But when you do, it's awesome. Overall, I give Castle Crashers an 8 out of 10. It has many good things going for it, but it is still an arcade game, and you can't get the same satisfaction from it the same way you would Halo or Devil May Cry, but it's still great.